I'm not sure to what extent you've talked to Joe Resnick about Gustafson, but do you anticipate any serious difficulties in coming to an agreement?
No. But I seldom do. I go into every contract negotiation optimistic, and then I get my heart broken later. So, no, I don't. I think I think he wants to stay, and we would like to sign him.
Do you have any interest in trying to move up and get a first-round draft pick?
Yes. Yeah. Not because of any sense that we have to. I just can't stand watching my scouts sit there for. These guys work so. It's just a bizarre job. You work 363 days a year for 2 days on stage. There's no job like it in the world, and that's what we do. And then I take away all their picks. Tell them they can sit there, watch people pick for the better part of 2 days or whatever it works out to be. That's what bothers me. Even though they were all on board to make the deal, that's what bothers me. So yeah, if I can get a pick back in the first round or in the second round or both, we're going to try to do that.
You're not a guy who second guesses himself very often, but when you look around the league at the big young teams in this league that are coming, it's Washington, Pittsburgh, Chicago, they're all built the same way.
Yeah. And
you're not building the same way. Yeah. And it worked for you in Anaheim. Do you ever worry or do you ever second guess that will have been a mistake in terms of chasing a championship?
No. You can't do this job. That's your guy's job, is to second guess everything that I do. And that's why I don't get mad at that. That's what you're supposed to do. To me, you've got to have a blueprint. The blueprint I've used has worked everywhere I've worked. Obviously, the most notable success in Anaheim, but if you look, the 4 years before I got to Anaheim, 4 playoff teams, averaged 103 points. I was in the playoffs the last 7 full seasons before I got here, and the teams averaged 104 points. Played in 5 playoff rounds in Vancouver, 7 in Anaheim. I'll put my record up against anybody combining those two things, and it's the same blueprint. Build from the net out, have a hostile team, top 6, bottom 6. We're not there yet with our group, so I'm not going to change what's been successful. It was successful in Hartford, believe it or not. I just didn't get a chance to finish the job there. But it was, that plan. This is, my model, my role model for building teams was Bill Torrey and the great Islander teams. That's where I got my philosophy of putting teams together. They're skilled, belligerent, big teams built from the net out. And
I'm talking more in terms of time frame. Not in terms of the blueprint of what kind of team you put, but how you put them together.
Yeah.
Like over time as opposed to fast.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in a 5-year rebuild here. So you can point and say, Pittsburgh picked the ball out of a drum to get Sidney Crosby. Don't tell me there was any skill there. So when you say a Pittsburgh team, say, geez, what a great rebuilding job they did. They won a goddamn lottery. I know, I came in second. All right? Every time I see Sidney, you know what I say to him? This close, Sid. You were this close to being a Duck. There's 2 of us up on the stage. So they can take all the bows they want in Pittsburgh. They stumbled on Sidney. All right? It's a blind pig and an acorn. They got lucky compared to 30 teams. Good for them. But so to me, in the 5 years, I'm not interested in that. And I know there's a shelf life on a GM. I know that at some point, ownership here will say if he's not getting it done at the right pace, they'll make a change. It's part of my life. I've said this before. It's a high wire act. You make that deal with Calgary. I hang up and I'm thinking this deal really helped our team. What do you think Daryl's thinking? Exact same thing. He's thinking, I can't believe Brian Burke made this trade. That's how it works. And one of us, like I say, it's a high wire act. There's no net when you're trading assets like this. One of us is going to be right on the Phil Kessel deal. I hope Peter Chiarelli drafts a player that plays for his team for a long time. That's the price tag that we're willing to pay. But I hope people evaluate it fairly and say a deal worked out for us too, if it does. So that's it. You take these chances, you roll the dice. You got 1 million people second guessing what you do. There's no safety net. Your team starts to win, you get a contract extension. Your team doesn't, you're working somewhere else. Or maybe not working. But you're not working there. That's life. That's our life.
Brian, with your impatience of not wanting to wait 5 years, you're a year and a half in, effectively a year and a little bit more. When does this blueprint reach its fruition? When?
That's an excellent question for which I have no answer at this point in time. I mean, obviously, we feel, with the changes that have been made, that we feel that this is, again, and we'll talk about this more coming out of camp after we see what we have, we think this group that finished the year could have made the playoffs if we'd had them all year. So if you add internal improvement, I mean, they played at a pace in the game since January 31st. They established that. They played in top 16 and 7th in the East, I believe. You can look up the stats. I might have them wrong. But if that group improves 10% in the offseason and we add a player or two, we get Komisarek for the whole year, we only had a limited look at him, we believe this group can be in the playoffs. And so that's our goal. You can't, that first step on that old proverb that every journey, the longest journey begins with a single step, that first step in our league is making the playoffs. And that has to be our goal and our mission for next year. And then your goal is, how do we beat somebody? And there's 4 steps in the development of a team. You crawl, then you walk, then you run, and then you sprint. The last 2 steps are infinitely harder to make than the first 2 steps. So, the teams that, to me, walk, take a step, maybe make the playoffs, and then the next year miss, it's got to be a constant evolution where you've got the assets to, once you start to walk, and then you start to run, that you can gear it up and sprint. And that's when you add those last pieces and try to win. So we're still somewhere in the walking stage where we think we can make the playoffs next year, and then we'll see what we can add in the summer.